people for a readiness and a literacy that many of us don't know yet. But the critical thinking skills, the awareness, that's not just regurgitating information. That's not just selecting multiple choice. That's not just being told, you go work on this and bring me back this sheet of paper. It's authentic work in critical settings. Kids have to be able to respond to authentic requests for information in front of peers, in front of others. We have to be doing new and different kinds of work in the sciences and exploring. Very early on, in second grade, kids are doing algebra. We have to be able to ensure that that's happening in our district. It's happening in lots of other places. We got to make sure it's happening here. So this college and career readiness literacy is about being ready for the future inside of our schools every day. And those literacies are more than simply math and English. It's the being multi-literate and having multiple languages at your disposal, but also the language of technology. Into this framework of 3 regions that are need-based, and that's really emerged in this conversation, this back and forth. We talked about results-based budgeting and other structures. We need to move to needs-based. We need to be responsive to what community needs are, and then move our organization to meet those needs. So that's why we're moving into these frameworks that in these regions, the region is responsible for ensuring safe and high-quality full-service schools in every neighborhood. And you have that conversation by region towards this goal that we create a full-service community district that serves the whole child, eliminates inequity, and provides each child with an excellent teacher for every day, so that all students graduate. And over the course of time, and we've talked about some of the battle that starts about, do you want kids going in career or college or we're going to focus on our children will graduate. And they will graduate being able to know and do these other things. So high school graduation becomes a central tenet of everything that we're doing, whether it's starting kindergarten, early childhood, how are we preparing young people to graduate? So that's all of the strategic direction and all of these other documents essentially on one page. Do we want to try to stop that?
I think they're doing
We'll have
some
our
work on the
assistant SUPA facilities go see if we can see if we can get the sawing stopped on the cement.
Well, they gotta fix the parking lot.
It's true.
Do you want feedback on this, or are we ready to go on?
My children have been in schools and gone through worse type of construction outside, and they've had to have teaching time.
Excellent.
So we need to just move on and act like adults. Don't
Absolutely.
move on outside.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
I mean, that's no big deal.
how does the board want to proceed? Do you want to do questions about this now? Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
So that's getting it to one page. Now, let's move to part 3. So I'm skipping part 2, going to part 3. And the reason for doing this really explicitly is in the one-to-ones I've had with each of you, the conversations have been good, and you've given specific feedback and said, I'd like to see this show up. I'd like to see where it's referenced. I want to see where this is embedded in the plan. And at this moment, I really need to appreciate 2 folks who have been incredibly helpful, and without whom you would not see these documents in near the shape that they're in. And that's Perry Chen, if you could wave, Perry, right there. Thank you. And Maria Santos. Maria. And thanks to funding from the East Bay Community Foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, and the Rogers Family Foundation, they have been able to work and support taking the feedback and everything that I kind of bring semi-coherently to them. They've embedded and reproduced and brought frameworks and documents. So thank you again. Yeah. So taking those strategic areas, if you look on the left-hand side, you see the strategic area that we've discussed. In each case, board members have said, so how? Help me understand who's going to be doing this. So one of the things that we've done is begun to really be detailed about who the people are, where the structures are, and talking about the different kind of staffing that would be necessary, and then start to detail out how some of these task forces would be organized. Again, they are more detailed in other parts, but this is the high-level kind of run-through. The description of the goals or the purpose, and then your feedback in the right-hand column. So different members, each of you is represented in this column in different parts of your feedback. And I would just then ask you to turn all the way to page 8, which is the last page of this set. And what I did on this, in a couple instances, there are specific quotes from you, but they are the 5 areas that resonated across the 7 board members' feedback as kind of guiding principles to frame how we go forward, and I was just going to read those. Principles and purposes of equity and social justice have to be at the center and should be clear behind the planning. Tie ideas and visions to practical, reasonable, and doable work. Take care to communicate and dialogue with the community and translate from education speak for easy understanding. Be bold. Make sure we're educating kids for what's coming. Consider the opportunities to connect new organizational practices with sustainability models. Connecting green best practices for facilities and assets is one example. However, there was another part of that conversation that was some of these principles, the ecological principles, that there are parts of Oakland that are not well, and if we continue to believe that those are isolated and not part of a whole body, for example, if we had, as an organization, as a body, had liver cancer, it's not the liver's fault, and it doesn't just stay in the liver. What happens is the entire body is infected, affected, and eventually, without treatment and deep care, dies. We are in a situation in Oakland of extreme illness. We have pockets that are abscessed. We have places that are in deep distress. And we have to understand that we have a linked fate, that our city has to understand together how to resolve and solve some of the inequity that we're faced with. And embedded in all of this has to be this idea of linked fate and social justice. This is, in fact, I think, what really will be sustainable. And that the Oakland Unified School District has the wherewithal to be the platform to organize that kind of dialogue. And in our efforts to become a full-service community district, where we see thriving students, the outcome of that is the effect of unifying Oakland for the academic and social success of our children. That's what I believe will draw young people and families back into the district. That's what I deeply believe will help influence the conversation in Oakland about our expectations for all of our 18-year-olds, that none of our young people should be discarded. None of our young people should be expected to be incarcerated. None of our young people should not have access to high-quality teaching. We need to ensure that. And embedded in all of these activities in very concrete ways are ways to increase access to opportunity. It's really the time to acknowledge what we've been doing is completely inadequate. The results we've been getting are from the actions we've been taking. If we want to get incremental improvement, we should continue on doing what we've been doing. We have to do something radically different to get radically different outcomes. Becoming a full-service community district, that's a resource for the entire city of Oakland around a core common vision for the health and well-being of all of our children, is that kind of radical. I believe fundamentally that the structures that we've outlined, the feedback I've gotten, actually puts us in a position to take responsibility for doing that. The last thing I would say is that I know for a fact we, just as staff, can't produce this plan, that this has to be a community-developed strategic plan. The board sets the strategic direction, and then through this process over the next year, we develop a strategic plan that takes Oakland where it needs to be a place of connection, a place of care, and a place of excellence for young people. So with that, I will take questions.